Now, prophecies for America. God says, and I will bless them that bless thee. That's why we've been blessed. Right? You know, I mean, it isn't by coincidence that Isaiah saw the Jews coming back out of all these lands on the wings of eagles. And it was the American plane with the eagle that brought them all out of the country. Do you hear me? Yeah, that's right. It was the American plane with the eagle, right, that brought them all back from all these countries, that brought them into Israel. That wasn't by chance. That was by prophecy. That was by prophecy. On the wings of eagles, he's going to bring them back. Ooh. Isn't that good? I like that myself. Right? God said, I'll bless them. So why were we blessed? I will bless them that bless you, but I will curse them that curse thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Whatever God's, how many of God's promises is God's promises?
Amen.
God says, I have not given up the Jews. They are still God's chosen people. They are still the elect of God. We have not replaced them. We have joined with them. Because if God would divorce them, then why couldn't he divorce us?
Yep. That's right.
You know, I talked to somebody who said, oh, God's done. I said, well, if God's done with the Jews, then why ain't he done with us? Because we sure haven't lived right. Can I hear an amen?
Amen.
Can I hear an amen? I mean, he sure got rid of us, too. So I said, no, because grace and mercy. So let's don't even go down that path. All right. President Obama has turned his back on Israel, constantly rebuked them. He's proposing dividing Israel to create the Palestinian nation. Now, I think this is very interesting. I found this prophecy. I don't know about you, but I love David Wilkerson. I'm sorry, I did. I love David Wilkerson. And I don't know, but Sister Ruth, who I talk about all the time, Sister Ruth was with him in New York City. Sister Ruth worked with Nicky Cruz. She was the first one to work with David. She was from his area, and she went up there and worked with him. She's the only woman to ever have total right into Rikers Island prison. She could go anywhere she wanted to go. She could go anywhere where she wanted to go. I love Sister Ruth. She would call me one of her children, right? You know, and she had the, you know, Sister Ruth. Remember the old buns on top of the head? You know, she wore, you know. David called them the beehive. They said, look, she got the beehive going down. I said, no, that's, you know, but that's how Sister Ruth was, you know. And so Jackie and I actually got a letter. It was from David Wilkerson. We went to the mailbox, got a letter, and I don't know how he knew or whatever, but he sent a letter, and he said, dear Dave and Jackie, I am praying for you, for the enemy is trying to take you out. And I am praying God's protection over you. And we're like, whoa. Next thing you know, the next day we're going down a mountain, and the ball joint came apart. And the frame set down on the car, and there was nowhere to go. And somehow that car went sideways over to the curb and stopped. The guy in the tow truck came, and he said, how in the world did you get over there? I said, God. I mean, he said, well, you got tar marks here, then they stopped. I said, yeah, because that's when the angel took over, picked the car up, put it over here against the curb. I mean, there's no hot. He said, well, there's no more marks. So when we went to put to the garage, the mechanic out there said, I've never seen this before in my life. So what happened? He said the nut just came off. It wasn't stripped, it wasn't torn, it wasn't broken. It just came loose. And I believe then that God saw and God spoke to somebody. See, what to God that we all could hear more of that and pray for one for another and warn one for another. Are you hearing me? See, that's, yeah? So, but anyways, David said in 2009 that an earth-shattering calamity is about to happen. If David had one fault, it was the fact that David was so fervent that he thought it was now. He didn't realize the future prophecies that he was given. Like if you look at a lot of his prophecies now that he gave in 73 and 74, they happened, but not then. And so a lot of people thought he was a false prophet, but because he was so fervent in his belief, it's going to happen now. Everybody run, get out of here. The flood's coming, you know. It's like somebody, you know, that has a vision of a flood, and they run and get everybody out of the house. Says, come on, it's coming. And it's not even raining. God was showing him, then 5 years from now, all of a sudden the rain comes down and there is a flood, just like what he saw. See, sometimes we need to understand the timing of the Lord. See, Peter said a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. We're so bound by this. Can I hear an amen? We're so bound by this. See, God's bound by a 1,000-year clock. That's why we get so impatient. God goes like, "What? It's only been 2 minutes." Oh, you hear me? To us, it's like, "God, it's been 20 years," and God goes, "No, I don't mind. It's only been 2 minutes. What are you upset about?" Hello? You hear me?
Amen.
All right, so he said that for 10 years I have been warning about 1,000 fires coming to New York City. It will engulf the whole megaplex, including areas of New Jersey and Connecticut. Major cities all across America will experience riots and blazing fires such as we saw in Watts, Los Angeles, years ago. There will be riots and fires in cities worldwide. There will be looting, including Times Square in New York City. What we are experiencing now is not a recession, not even a depression. We are under God's wrath. David saw that there's going to be unrest in America and across the world. Even now, if you notice it, even now, it's like not only is it race against race, but it's also economic class against economic class. How that even, some people believe that they should get everything, right? And the poor is being blamed for everything. That's what Hitler did with the Jews. Hitler blamed the Jews for all the troubles. Are you hearing me? And how many has heard this in our newspaper? It's the poor, if the rich would pay their share. Are you hearing me? See, it's creating strife. Right? Are y'all understand what I'm saying? What the news media is creating strife. They're blowing things up to make strife. But I think that's interesting. And David's, but I think that if we do not bless Israel, this could very well happen. I'm not saying it is, I'm saying it very well could happen. It says, "And it came to pass in Genesis that when the sun went down and it was dark," it always happens when the sun goes down, it gets dark. "Behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. And the same day that the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates." Now, the present administration is wanting to have Israel divided. They want to give part of Jerusalem to the Muslims to create a Palestinian state. Now, what's interesting is this, and let me tell you what's so interesting about this. In the United States of America, what's our capital?
DC.
Anybody know? Washington. Who chose Washington to be the capital? The American people did. Okay? In Canada, the capital, anybody know what it is? Quebec. Who chose it? The Canadian people. In England, the capital was London. Do you know who chose it? The English people. In Israel, we told them where their capital city would be. It's Tel Aviv. We would not allow them to have Jerusalem as their capital city. Isn't that amazing? Every nation in the world can choose where you want your capital city, but Israel, they can't choose what city they want for their capital. They had to choose Tel Aviv. It was told them that, no, this is your capital, not this, because they wanted Jerusalem. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that? Do you all not find this? See, to me, it's fascinating to see how the world tries to get rid of God.
Yeah.
Right? See, to me, it's
even in the Old Testament, you would think that the way they talked that Jerusalem would be the capital.
Yeah.
You would automatically think it's what it would be.
Yeah. I mean, because all the history, the crucifixion, the resurrection, everything, the start of the church, everything focused. The temple was in Jerusalem. Everything focused on Jerusalem. But when they came back after the Holocaust, and they became a nation, The world said, no. You can't have Jerusalem. No. Why can't I have it? Because we said no. Take Tel Aviv. I just thought that's interesting. Now, David Wilkerson said something that he prophesied that the United States is going to experience a tragic earthquake. One day the nation will be really under the impact of the biggest news stories of modern times. It will be the coverage of the biggest, most disastrous earthquake in history. It will cause widespread panic, fear, all this. Networks will have to suspend their programming. But the part I like is this. If I may point this out to you. And he says he thinks in it that Japan will have one first. And that, isn't that interesting? How many remember what happened in Japan? Remember the massive earthquake that Japan had? He said it would be a massive earthquake. He said, I see this earthquake in America, but before it happens, I see one in Japan first. I think that's interesting. How many know that Japan had that very massive earthquake? That totally, right? Total devastation. I just think it's interesting.
And I don't even think it was a 10.0.
No.
I think it was like a 9.6 or something, but still.
Yeah. So you're saying, so Pastor, are you scaring us? No, I'm telling you this. Number one, God will keep us. How many believe God will keep you?
Yep.
How many believe God will send a bird to feed you if He has to? Amen. How many believe God? How many believe what the Word says? It might strike 10,000, but it's not coming nigh my dwelling. See, church, now's the time to get faith. Now's the time to believe. Now's the time to build yourself up. Not when it happens, because when it happens, right? But the time is now to build yourself up. But the reason I brought that up was this, and I'm not going much further, is this. There's been several prophecies. Whether or not they are, I don't know. But there's been several prophecies that if we are part of the process that divides Israel, God's going to divide America.
Woo.
Pastor Shane Warren was the first one to saw it. He saw the Madrid fault, which is in the center, have the biggest earthquake it ever had, and it literally divided America in half. Literally divided America in half. And he used the verse that says there in Leviticus, they have divided my land, now I will divide their land. Then, a little bit later, Pastor John Kilpatrick. Anybody heard of John Kilpatrick?
Yeah.
John also saw the same thing. He had a dream. And it was, he looked and there was actually some old words that showed where Spain was, where they had owned property in the land, where it had just totally divided America in half.
Pastor, that one with John Kilpatrick, I seen that on, I think I did see it on Sid Roth.
Yeah,
He said that he was asleep, and he said he woke up, and he went out in the room, and he said he actually had to turn the TV on the radio on because it was so real to him, he thought it already took place.
Yeah, you're right, see? And then, another one, a prophetic minister. He was told that Israel would be betrayed by America in a political trap, forcing her to surrender part of Jerusalem, the West Bank. And he said, as a direct result, God's judgment will come upon America, and He will divide it right down the center. Now, all these had these without the other one knowing. And then there's actually was 8 different ministers that had the same word. But I've only got, and this is the one, John Paul Jackson, who just died. He just went to be with the Lord. Anybody know John